Welcome to Painting with Soraya. We're working from the Macclesfield Psalter, and this particular manuscript or charter is inspired by this particular illuminated manuscript, as you can see with a little dog, very cute. Little dog, very cute. And I'm just going to go over what I do. Now, I don't know if what I do is right. I don't know if I do is wrong, but I've been painting for about 15 years. And so far I paint for Kingdom and I paint for several baronies. And if you need somebody to paint for you, let me know. I would be happy to paint for you. I love doing charters. I have a very, very tiny area in which I have to paint. So I don't create charters anymore. I don't do, I have done some, as long as you send me the artwork, if you have a scroll that you want painted, I have done scrolls. I painted them, but I don't create them anymore. And I don't do calligraphy. So my skill is just simply a painter. And there are several things that I do as a painter. Again, don't know if it's right, don't know if it's wrong. It's just what I do. It's just what works for me. And I think that's what you have to kind of figure out for yourself. What's going to work for you? People have asked me, how do I get such a nice, solid block of paint on which to put my white work? There's several ways I do it. I make sure that my paint is sort of the thickness of wet toothpaste, and stir it a lot, especially with laying down gold in a nice solid block like this. It takes a lot of stirring, it takes a lot of water, it takes a lot of patience. I will feather my lines so that I have something to connect back to. I don't block off and try and connect to a block. Gold is really hard to work with. Metals are very hard to work with. And so trying to get them to, you'll see there's a highlighted piece right there. You're going to find that with your gold. It doesn't always lay down properly. The heat will affect it. The cold will affect it. Everything affects it. It's very temperamental. But you can see I like to use the traditional colors of red and blue. And for this timeline, they had an orangey color. And they had the purple color from the shells of the mussel, as I understand it. So, and I've done the traditional white work on these, as you can see. And that's what I plan on doing on here. One of the things I do, here's another example that I haven't done any of the white work on yet. On this one I chose not to use the orange, but I always do the red, I always do blue, and I've learned the 3-color rule. It's really important to use the 3-color rule. Your charters will come out much more dynamic. The white work will pop much better. Your eyes like to go to color, so when you just use a couple of different colors, 3, and then gold, and then white, of course. But when you use fewer colors, there's more cohesive look to your work. And I have found that to benefit me. Something else that people have asked me about is my palettes. One thing I like to do is I like to have variated palettes. I've got my blue. This is my the basic blue that I use, a lighter version, and then a darker version. The purple, a lighter version, a darker version. My green, over here, regular color, lighter version, darker version, and then here I have a bronze that I like to use occasionally. My palettes aren't pretty, but they're very, very, very functional. My red, my darker red, my lighter red, my brown, my lighter brown over here, my darker brown here, and then 3 variations of brown and a white. And I will often put a white in the middle of palettes whenever I can. It helps with adding white to your work, and it also it's just really convenient to have white everywhere. So I'm grabbing my 20 brush, very, very tiny, and I'm also grabbing my articulated brush. These are from Amazon. I think they're acrylic brushes for acrylic work, and I use everything. I look up techniques for acrylic work. I look up techniques for watercolor, because the gouache is basically a high concentrated watercolor. It will lend itself to doing watercolor things, like doing washes. It's very nice for a wash, for blending, as long as your colors are wet. And I do let my colors dry for 24 hours. I let my gold dry for 24 hours. I like doing that. It helps everything concentrate down. I'll shut up for a minute and I'll do some basic white work. This is again my white, using my 20. There it is, there it is. It's a tiny little brush, tiny brush. And clearly I use the heck out of it. So first thing I do is I make sure it's the consistency of, like I said, wet toothpaste. And this brush is a little bit bent. It's older, it's bent. And so I load the brush, then I offload the brush as much as I can, and I touch it down. Oh, not quite enough paint on it. That's okay. Load it up again. Touch it down. When I get down here, I push down to get the paint off. That's just something I figured out over time. Don't know if it's the right way to do it. That's just the way I do it. And curve. And I think the paint needs to be a little bit wetter because it doesn't really want to work that well. Do a little bit of highlighting here. Highlight, highlight. In the rule of painting, your light source comes from over here. So all your highlights face this way. All your low lights face this way. Your low lights are your darker colors. So one trick is that when you have a white line, you're going to have a very dark line next to it, and that's what makes it pop. Again, that's something I learned just over time. Things nobody tells you, but you kind of figure out on your own. I do flip my brush around to try and make the most of the paint. I kind of think my paint is not quite wet enough. Beautiful. Nice line. Go through and do my leaves. This is how I do most of my white work, is with the 20. going slow, letting the paint come off the brush. Sometimes it takes a minute. I'm going to go through and paint these. Oh, I should show how I do these. Nice and crisp. With the tip, just with the tip. Gonna go back over it. There we go. Come around. Come around. I like to draw away from the very, 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 very tip. Make that clean. I'm having some issues with the with the holder of the phone. When I have to go back over like this, I only use the very, very tip of the brush because I don't want a lot of paint to come off of it. I'm having a hard time with my white. I need to add more water. I just didn't want to stop and add more water. There we go. There we go. I'm going to continue on. I'm going to fix my white and then I'll come back.